like to call to order the Council Operations, Intergovernmental Relations, and Public Transportation Committee for Tuesday, January 31st. It's 3:02. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Ms. Simon.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Schrein. Mr. Schrein is absent at the moment. There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that council members Kelly and Conwell are in attendance.
Thank you very much. Approval of the minutes from the November 15th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Approval.
So moved by Councilman Miller.
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Simon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Lou.
Good afternoon, Lou.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. In general, I come to this meeting because I always support our Inspector General office. And of course, let's not forget the PT in this committee stands for public transportation. The reason we got a public transportation in this committee, that's because from 2016-17, at that time, I would say 2016, we realized the state, when they budget everything for all the counties, they were very, very partial. They did not intend to fund public transit in the way we all needed. And this is the reason why at the time counties formed a subcommittee meeting in order to find a good strategy to see how we could get a better funding opportunity through state budget. So after that, that subcommittee got merged into this particular committee meeting. So here again, I am here to invite all of you. Later you will all receive the link for you to RSVP for our local events to celebrate the Transit Equity Day. This is a national event. Locally, we have been participating in before, but this particular year, sure, we know certain changes in the State House and in our local council, doesn't matter county or city. So I would like to invite all of you again, when you receive the link, if you are willing to participate, to show that our government, our transit authority, and our public, general public are together. We need equitable transit funding from especially the state. Federal government does help us here, there, but the state government is not helping at all. So I wish you will come on downtown Public Square the coming Saturday, February 4th. That's the day Rosa Parks' birthday. That's the day we use it as the symbol for our public transit equity. So please come on, that's 2 p.m., the event. We will try to take the 240 bus, number 26, to go to the near West Side Happy Dog to continue our rally and celebration. And I wish all of you, if you have time, please come in and invite other people who would love to protect the environment, who wants our workforce, our healthcare, everything, our local economy to grow. Public transit is helpful. It doesn't matter, some people may choose still have a car on the side. It's not only for poor people, actually it's there for everybody because it's funded by taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou. As always, we appreciate it. What we're doing today, let's go. Public comments, move approval, matters referred to the committee. We have no matters referred to the committee, we just have a presentation. I put a year-end report together from the council operations. All my colleagues were distributed. Today we're just going to talk about it, and I appreciate the efforts of Mike King for helping me put it together, and I appreciate the council president for allowing me to have the presentation today. So the floor is yours, Mr. King.
Thank you, Chairman Sweeney and members of the committee. My name is Michael King, County Council staff. So late last year at the chair's request, I reached out to members of council to offer them the opportunity to share their ideas to improve council operations. Yes. Yep. These ideas were all compiled in the committee's year-end report, which I believe was sent to you late last year. And as part of this report, Chairman Sweeney identified 3 top priorities for council to consider. So I'm going to go through those 3 top priorities, and then at the end we'll go through just a list of the other ideas that were shared as part of the process. So the first priority identified in the report is to improve council's visibility and brand. I understand that Chairman Sweeney has invited some guests to speak on this, so I'll turn the mic over to them at the chair's leisure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You can have a seat. I'll just make a brief comment on this one. Ever since I've been here, I've just been asking folks, they ask me, hey, Sweeney, what are you doing now? And I share that I'm on county council. And they say, I didn't know there was a county council. And I'm trying to figure out how we can better improve our brand. And what I thought about is if everybody can just close their eyes for a second and just think about the job that you have. And 92% of the people don't know you exist. And those people, it's your job to represent them. And those people pay your salary. And we have resources that could help them. My hope is through this discussion, our brand will be more available and that 92% of the people will shrink significantly. My whole goal on this is people know who we are and we're here to help. So thank you very much. We can have Eugene Miller, my former council colleague from City of Cleveland, who does work for Cleveland City Council in regards to their outreach. So Eugene, tell us how.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Before we start. Are we looking to do an RFP for work for this purpose? Because I wasn't sure if the potential vendors would be coming up to the podium.
It's up to council to decide. These are the folks that are just going to give me some expertise, and I thought it was appropriate to have experts talk about how we can improve our brand.
I don't mind hearing from the experts, but if there's an intention from the chair at some point to do an RFP, these experts probably would not be able to get involved with the RFP process without this context and having discussions with the county council. So I'm not sure what the intention is.
That's fine.
But I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. If that is indeed the case, they'll have to deal with the reality. So thank you.
Hold this down the whole time?
The green button.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. President, council members. I'm Eugene Miller. I've had the privilege to serve on Ohio State House and the Cleveland City Council. And I understand when it comes down to, when I got to the State House in 2007, when I'm in the city of Cleveland, in my home area, Glenville, I say I serve in the State House. They would say, what is the State House? That would be some members. Some persons in the community would say that. When I was in Cleveland City Council, they all knew who Cleveland City Council was. So I'm here to do a presentation for Mr. Sweeney and to answer any questions. I have a business. I've been doing this type of business since 2005, automatic calls and text messaging. I started out in 2005 making automatic calls, those pesky calls that you receive when you're running for office or you're doing government. Hello, this is Eugene Miller. Please remember to take your trash out. Hello, this is Eugene Miller. Will you vote for me today? Those are the calls that I do that a lot of people here have done or had them done against you. Those are the things that I do. And in 2019, I elevated to doing text messages. The text message is the same text message you receive. Hello, this is Eugene Miller. Can you please send me $5 for my campaign? Hello, this is Eugene Miller. There's a snowstorm out in your area. Please remember to drive safely. Those are the calls and services I provide for local government. I have local government clients. I have private clients on the state, federal, and local level. I have clients all 3 levels. Also, I have clients in the state of Ohio. I have clients in the state of Georgia. The name of my business, is Buckeye Peach Group. And the reason for that, because I'm expanding my business to the state of Georgia. So one of the things people say, well, why does county council need text messages? Over 98% of people receive a text message. You all got it today. If I have your phone number in my database, you got a text message today saying, we're gonna have this meeting today. Mr. Shrine, I say your last name right? I don't have your cell phone number. You know, so you would have got an automatic call saying, hello, this meeting is today or is being postponed. Everyone else, if I have your phone number or if it's up to date, then you received a text message from me earlier because we buy data all day long. We buy data, your information is public, and we can be purchased at any time. That's why I got your phone number. Like I was saying in my information, 98% of people read their text messages. Just about 22% of people read their emails. So if you have a newsletter going out through an email, it's unlikely to be read. Only 2 out of 10 people read the text message, the emails that go out. Say Councilwoman Simon has a newsletter she's sending out in South Euclid. Based on statistics, 2 out of 10 people read it. If Councilwoman Simon was to send a text message out with her newsletter, 98% of people normally will open it up because it's coming from Councilwoman Simon. Also, text messages are faster. We all get text messages all day long. It may be something you like or you don't like. I'm running late, you receive that text message. Text message is engaging. It engages our persons. We all have different demographics. You know, we have different, traditionally, automatic calls go to persons 55 and over. But if we have a younger demographic at 18 to 35, they use the text messaging. Where there's a text message to say that the county is going to be closing early because of the snowstorm. That could be sent out and people read those text messages. We wouldn't have enough time to send a call out to say that the city is closing because of the snowstorm. Because we have that happen sometime when we let people out. A lot of times the city goes first, then the county. How we distribute people when they have a snowstorm. You can update your local residents all day long. I have some examples, like with the street blocking, and we know that we're having a big concert coming in, and we want to make sure that residents know that East 9th Street is going to be closed. We can send that out with a text message. Or if we know out in Bay Village they had a water main break, we can send it out immediately to that area, let them know it's a water main break and how long it's going to take to repair. Weather. Unfortunately, we live in a climate that's sometimes can get really cold, or we can send an individual out. We have 9 council persons. 9, correct? 11. So we can send out 11 separate messages. So if Councilman Miller, my cousin, if he needs a message to go out in his area, it'll go out, it'll say Councilman Miller, and it'll be individually. Or if Councilwoman Conwell needs a message, it can go out independently, all different ones. And we also provide polling. That polling can say, well, how things are going. If you have waste collection, does the county does waste collection?
No.
Well, I know they do street repair. I live on Green Road. So if on Green Road they're doing street repair, we can update the residents and know on Green Road the street repair begins in, say, August, it ends in October. Or if there's any delays, we can send a text message out on behalf of Councilwoman Stevens, and it says that it's been a delay and we're going to postpone it. We can do the polling and say, well, how do you like their service? How do we like the service of the repair on Green Road by ABC Company? We can do a poll out to the residents in Ward 10 and District 10. How do we like the services? And we can do a poll to find out how do we like the services there. We also can do scheduled text messages. Well, we know we have an event. Councilwoman Conwell, she's in charge of the health committee, and it says she's having a health fair going on. We can send a text message out saying we're having a health fair, or we having an update on a health report or something is going on. So those are the different things we can do. We're competitive with any type of, understanding that Councilwoman Simon said if they had an RFP, I'm here to just do an informational and give information on what my company does, what it provides for state and local government currently. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, I'm here to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. It's branding Cleveland or Cuyahoga County Council, and the individual council members. It's more about the entire council, so we know what a county council is. Once they know what a county council is, they'll know what their council members, who they are, and then how we're here to help them.
Correct.
The whole thought process here. With your thoughts on the data. What does buy it mean?
Well, when the data means that, like, for example, I don't have all 11 of the council person's cell phone numbers. That means I have to go purchase the data through an independent company to make sure I have the data. Right now, I have over 80% of the data for Cuyahoga County residents. It's just a term that when we buying data, we have to purchase the data for our residents. Because I don't have all the data, but if we need data in District 11, we go get the data for District 11 or District 10, any one of these individual districts. And I understand you saying council as a large, a whole. We can do council as a whole. For example, if council has, when I came in, I seen this, your map with all your different council members. So immediately this map could be sent out. This right here, for example, can go out in a text message. And a text message, it'll go out, it will show to all the, we go with demographics. So say we're trying to reach young persons 18 to 35, this will be text out to the young people 18 to 35, and it'll show the breakdown of all the different council persons as a whole. And on the other side, we're gonna show a map. Or, for example, if we wanted to go into Glenville and we want to do Councilwoman Conwell, we can just have her information go out in her community and with her map and her contact information. Or for Councilman Miller or our newest council member, Mr. Kelly, if we want, he's new, for prime example. Councilman Kelly, how long have you been here, sir? 1 month. So Councilman Kelly's only been here 1 month. So one of the things we will have to do with Councilman Kelly is to introduce him to his district and send information to his residents and let them know that this is his phone number, his contact information. This is how they can get in contact with him to help represent his area. We would do it exclusively for Councilman Kelly in Ward 1. I'm sorry, District 1.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation. We're going to get Jeremiah up here, and then after we're done with both presentations, we'll have questions for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, County Council.
Thank you very much. Please come on up and introduce yourself. We look forward to your presentation.
Chairman Sweeney, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Jeremiah Gapone. My organization is known as Data Genomics, and we are a digital marketing and advertising firm that assists a number of nonprofit entities and other organizations in getting out their message and their brand. I myself am a resident of South Euclid, and I serve the community on our Board of Zoning Appeals over there in South Euclid. So get to do some of the paperwork that you do as well in my community. So I'd like to share a little presentation with you today that just talks about how we could possibly engage residents a little bit more and introduce county council to them. So when it comes to digital marketing for government municipalities, it's a growing challenge because governments want to have the community engage with the decision-making process, right? They want it to be more than just a ballot box. They want the community to engage on all of the issues that they're taking up, receive feedback, and receive direction from their constituents and their community on what to do next. When it comes to branding a government body, it's fairly difficult. Right now, if you just Google in Cuyahoga County, before you even get to council, you're going to get the results on the county administration itself or the individual aspects of the government bodies, the ones that are most popular. So right now, it's going to be how to pay your property taxes and things like that. Being able to find county council online is incredibly difficult. In and of itself. And the brand has no distinguishment from the county administration itself. There is no unique council brand or identity that exists out there until you get to except for the word council itself. So branding is something that could be improved so that people know that it's council and that they know council exists. In today's digital marketing world, it's important that the brand is built to engage residents so that you're looking to communicate with them in a two-way conversation rather than just a one-way conversation. A lot of content put out by government bodies tends to be information only. And that seems great, but the problem is that social media algorithms then rank that lower because people have a very low likelihood to engage it, right? When they announce like meeting today, you're not going to get a lot of comments, likes, or engagements on that. It's thinking about how to put out branded content that is going to engage community members and then want to have a conversation about or share to their friends and family online. When it comes to these sort of engaging ways, you have to find the way that you can focus on people. Is it that they need to find the value in council? Is it they need to understand what council does for public safety? Is it transparency and government accountability? What is it that residents of Cuyahoga County are interested in learning more about what council does? And then how can you put out content about that? Data is really important to understand residents' behavior. The sort of things that residents are engaging with outside of council can be important. So what are the things that Destination Cleveland puts out? What are the things that the Greater Cleveland Partnership, other large government bodies or public organizations are putting out that the community is engaging with? And then data could also be collected online, whether through social or through other ways, to create email newsletters. The previous speaker was talking about text messaging programs. Those things are all really great, but you want the community to opt into those opportunities. You want them to click a box that says, I do agree to receive an email from Cuyahoga County Council. I do want to receive text messages, and maybe even subset those into I want to learn more about X, Y, Z, or I only want to learn about A. So that way you can ensure that people are getting the messaging and the information that's most interesting to them. When it comes to digital marketing, again, it needs to be a two-way conversation, not just output going out there and landing and then not getting engagement from the community. There's also the opportunity to do some rapid response type stuff. So when council is taking up important matters and making major decisions, that they can put those out and the community can become immediately informed. Obviously the purview of council versus the county administration is somewhat complex on what you'd want to put out and what they would put out, and finding the line between not putting out double messaging. For example, the change in the deadline for property taxes. Who did that fall under? Who's putting out that information? Is it findable by everybody in the community? Is everybody aware? That sort of thing is important. There's also the opportunity to talk about council's particular projects to those communities through social media. So when we think about the new deer sterilization program that's been launched, particularly on the east side, that's a program that gets a lot of engagement in South Euclid and other communities as far as people feeling really great about it or feeling negative about it. I know it happens a lot at city council meetings. I don't know how much of that gets to council so that they get direct feedback from community members. But putting out content that people can engage with and respond, I think, is important. And social media is also a really cost-effective manner of engaging with people. Once you're putting out great content that people are engaging with, essentially it can be a free megaphone to engage our community members. Some of the things that you are already doing are really great. Live streaming of meetings. Some new opportunities might be doing social media polls and surveys, virtual community events and workshops, doing real-time emergency updates and alerts, maybe putting out citizen-created content. How can you engage local community members or artists or other content creators to put out and generate content that then council can use? Think about this as influencers as well. There's a number of Cleveland area and Cuyahoga County influencers who are putting out great content. How can they shine a light on the work that council's doing or bring people into a conversation with council? Could be a really great opportunity. In leveraging social media, it's really great because there's transparency and accountability, right? It's out there for everyone to see. It's out there in the public forum. And with doing this, you might have the opportunity to bring in some more diverse voices into the conversation. And that's going to mean engaging people on platforms that maybe we're not so comfortable with in our day-to-day. TikTok's a huge growing platform that people are consuming now more than any other social media channel. Hours of TikTok are being consumed every day, even here in Cuyahoga County. So how can council, latch on to these emerging platforms and put out some sort of content to engage the community? Could be really worthwhile. Current state of affairs in looking at Cuyahoga County Council's following. So you do have unique socials set up. You have a Twitter account set up that has 5,000 followers. There's about 200,000 residents of Cuyahoga County who use Twitter daily. So a very small subset follow you on Twitter. On Facebook, there's about 1,900 people who follow the council Facebook. Most of those individuals do seem to be employees of the county. There are approximately 400,000 residents of Cuyahoga County who are on Facebook on a weekly basis. So again, a very small subset currently engage you on Facebook. Instagram, and what we'd call an emerging platform a few years ago, but is now more relevant. This is going to be your millennials and Gen Zs who are on Instagram, no real presence there from council. So how are we going to think about engaging the next, next generation of community leaders and helping them know that council exists and then that they can engage council? I think it's really important that you have to know something to then go out and find it. And I think that Councilman Sweeney's remarks at the beginning on, not many people knowing about council to begin with, especially after they leave the ballot box, is a pertinent point. Engagement rates on your current social media post currently have an opportunity for improvement. You're looking at getting like 5 or 6 likes on a post or something like that. In a county of 1.2 million people, you really should, it would be great to have thousands of people engage with your content and want to be involved with the decision-making process of council. And then the other thing to think about is frequency of posting can be considered as well. This is sort of if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a noise? If you put out a social media post 3 times a day and no one's following your page, does it matter? So these are some questions that I wanted to put in front of council to think about how they could, increase their brand awareness. So opportunities to promote council as an entity. Council's here to help the residents. I think that's why each of you ran for office and why you sit at the DM today. How can you get out that message that council as a whole is here to help, and that community members can come and engage council? They can engage in forums such as this. Doing some paid campaigns could be worthwhile to council to increase following. Not a lot of people are going to want to follow council just because, or they're not even aware about it. So putting out some messaging through a paid method could be worthwhile to invite people to follow the page, sign up for emails, sign up for text messages, and things like that. One of the other challenges that many government bodies are facing is we're now in a mobile-first world. I know that all of you probably have desktop or laptop computers, but of your constituents, 85% of the time that they spend online is on their mobile device. Content looks very different on a little rectangle than it does on a large screen computer. So ensuring that content is designed for a mobile-first world is really, really important. Relevant and timely information is also important. This can be challenging because you want to put out as much information as possible, but ensuring that it's relevant to the community that you're putting it out there for is important. Again, just posting for the sake of posting ends up beating down the algorithm, and your posts don't make it as far as they could otherwise. Inviting people to engage in two-way communication. I talked about engagement. What does that mean? That means people retweeting you, or engaging your tweets, commenting on your Facebook post, putting out their view, sharing with their opinions. Right now, everything seems to be information only. It's not really inviting a conversation. So how do we invite the residents of Cuyahoga County to engage in a conversation with council in the forums that they're using every day? I think is something to consider. And then thinking about how you're communicating throughout the year. So sort of a comprehensive marketing plan would be something that could be worthwhile for council to consider, that doesn't let the pertinent get in the way of the plan, but the plan enables you to look at, okay, we're at 1,000 followers today. What are we going to do to get to 2,000? What are we going to do to get to 5,000? What are we going to do to get to 10,000? And things like that. And having a well thought out plan could be really important. And then continually evaluating the strategy to get maximum impact. So how can council, again, be engaging the community members on these platforms, and then move on to the emerging platforms. I mentioned TikTok earlier, but social media is such a changing environment day after day that it's really important to be up on the latest and greatest. One, to claim your handle, as it were, right? We don't want somebody else to claim the county handle and use it for their own purposes. So that's always important to do. But then how can you engage people on the new platforms, video in particular, short form video that they're consuming today? So those were a few thoughts that we put together in looking at council. So I can step back and be happy to answer any questions that council or the chairman might have.
Thank you. Can you go a little deeper on what paid is?
Yeah, so most of the posts, or actually all the posts that the county puts out right now, I believe, are just organic, right? There's no money behind that. Through paid posts, you can target all of the residents of the county, and essentially get into their feed even if they don't follow you. And that can be their feed on Twitter, their feed on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can put out essentially a little ad that says, like or follow council, or here's information about council to increase brand awareness. And that can be really powerful to increase your following. If we look at the sewer district here in Cleveland, they're actually a nationally known Twitter account. They have over 50,000 followers. They're one of the top 10 government body Twitter accounts out there because the content that they put out is so engaging, right? So they do a lot of jokes and funny things to get people to engage. I don't know if that's the right voice for council, but council has the opportunity to put some dollars behind their posts so that the way the community members will see them, hopefully engage with them, and then eventually what we would call in the digital marketing world, convert to either a follower or convert to follow and sign up for an email chain or a text message chain or something like that.
Thank you very much. And I'm not a email texter. I mean, I'm a texter, but email's about it. But TikTok and Facebook isn't my cup of tea. How do you get somebody's Facebook? How do you get somebody's TikTok? And is that the stuff you buy to be able to get? And you can break it down by age and race and whatever targeted area we want to do. And who would be most beneficial to receive our communications to say, here's the services that we have, and we want to be able to let you know what they are so you can use them to increase the quality of your life in a positive way.
Yeah, so when it comes to doing paid digital media, certainly, data can be as complex or as simple as you'd like it to be. Council President Jones could go on to Facebook today and buy an ad for $50 that hit Cuyahoga County residents, right? Like it's all built into the platforms of Facebook, Twitter to do this geographically based. And depending on the messaging that you're putting out, you might want to, subset it if you wanted to do it by age, gender, a variety of different ways. But that's all built into the platforms themselves. There's no buying, data from somebody else. I think for the purposes of council, you want to get in front of all residents of the county, right? It's not that you only want to get in front of a certain subsect. It's a large audience of, again, 1.2 million individuals that you want to get in front of. If somebody else was trying to do smaller groups, yes, you could probably do really small subsets of individuals to get in front of. But council probably wants to get in front of more people rather than less people, I would imagine.
Yes, on that point, and through our chairwoman of HHS, the senior population has very specific needs and programs to be able to help them. So I think that'd be a wonderful tool to be able to communicate with that subset that we know is out there, and we know we have the resources. And there's a lot of people using it, but there could be some that don't. So
Yeah.
Just my thought on that.
Yeah, the baby boomer generation is the largest demographic using Facebook, for example, today. You get your younger millennials on Instagram. TikTok seems to be getting people across the board. And then Twitter gets your sort of news files who are really interested in staying up to date, up to the minute with news information. So depending on what we would call the channel or the platform, there's opportunities to maybe get in front of different audiences.
Thank you very much. I mean, this was about stimulating the thought process. To my colleagues, do we have questions?
I have one through the chair to Mr. Capone. In regards to the HHS example, so if we did, as county council, bought into this and we wanted to target the seniors, how is this platform going to be directed just to the seniors of Cuyahoga County? How will it, we don't know all of them's Facebook account. We don't know. We don't know if they're seeing it or not. So I just don't, I'm not techie, so I just
This is a program that you're running currently?
Well, HHS, yes, it's one of our, for senior and adult services, yes.
Okay, and they're currently running a digital campaign to...
I don't think
No,
they have a digital
what I
campaign.
think, we have a program.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that they're seeing it, and not everybody's being touched. So the question very specifically is, how would you identify who they are, and how can you deliver the services that they would understand in the way that they would receive it?
Got it. So when it comes to audience-specific advertising, I talked a little bit about where people are based upon their age demographics. So seniors are going to be more likely on Facebook as a place to be. You'd want to consider that. Anybody can go into Facebook and look at the number of above 65 people that they'd be able to hit through paid advertising, right? I don't know what that number is off the top of my head for Cuyahoga County, but you'd be able to get a number. You could compare that number to, I'm sure we have some data somewhere on how many residents in the county are above the age of 65. And then you'd also want to look at doing what we would call digital display advertising. This is what you see when you're reading cleveland.com, right? There's a little banner ad, and it's for, I don't know, last week it was all for DraftKings, for example, because they bought it out for the release of the new sports betting in Ohio. But, digital banner ads, that's an example of a digital banner ad, but that hits people not on social media as well when they're reading news websites and other places. So you could definitely go after that demographic, Councilwoman Conwell, to get in front of them through some paid means. And then you get, the great thing about, digital advertising is you get a lot of reports and data back, right? When you send a postcard, you presume that it gets in someone's mailbox and that they read it, but you don't really know. When you do digital advertising, you get to know how many people clicked on the ad through to your website. If you're doing video content, how much of the video did people watch? Did they watch only the first 5 seconds, or did they watch all 30 seconds? You get to understand if they like or commented on the video. Hopefully there can be team members who can respond back to people who might have questions about content. About the content, because they might send you a direct message to the account or post a question as a comment. So there's a lot of data that you're able to get back. And again, targeting can do a variety of things. We work with our friends just down the street here at the City Club to promote all of the great forums and other great public conversations that are held there. And we've developed audiences to get in front of the types of people who go to the City Club, but then also audiences of people who don't traditionally go to the City Club, because we want to invite them into the conversation. So there's all sorts of ways to do targeting. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, Councilwoman Conwell.
To some degree, but for example, through the chair to Mr. Capone, when we talk about seniors, you have seniors that are in the nursing homes that are not having access to computers and stuff like that. So I wouldn't use them specifically to reach out to. We'd probably need to engage a younger group in the 30s, 40s that are taking care of their parents. And then my other thing, a question would be, we're part-time as it is. How do we, part-time doing full-time jobs, how do we respond back? Who would manage that? So if we open that up to individuals to Facebook, I don't even do Facebook. It's another avenue. I know how to do it, but it's just another means that I don't have time in my day to get to. So who could we put in place to manage those type of things?
It's a difficult question, Councilwoman Conwell, that a lot of people ask. But the ideas that I was asked to sort of discuss today were about how to promote council as a whole. So I would foresee that council would either be able to establish an individual who works for the county that could be the single individual to respond, and they have a number of canned responses. Of course, you could go to outside vendors to do that and have somebody do what we call community management as well. But I think it's just really vital to promote a two-way conversation to get residents involved.
And thank you. Just on the untouchable residents that aren't available to social media, there are other means to be able to communicate with them.
Digital advertising is a solution. It's not always the only solution.
Yeah, I mean, there's the newsletters, tried and true. There's the neighborhood meetings going each one. So the simple fundamental thought that I have is to let as many people know who we are, and we're here to help with every tool available to us. And this is a substantial one to help us meet that goal. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Thank you. Mr. Schron, and then Councilman Schron, and then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Capone, you mentioned, and just more my desire to know more about your attitude on one of the subjects you kept pushing or talking about, which was TikTok. And as you know, as I'm sure you're well aware, there's a number of states that have actually eliminated it from the state being used by their employees, and the federal government and the Defense Department is now, I think, is stricken it from anybody in there. And of course, right here in Cleveland, TikTok has been the biggest promoter of the TikTok challenge, which has resulted in hundreds and hundreds of automobiles. I mean, my own parking lot had three stolen in the same day under the TikTok challenge, and their lives are being at risk. Give me your thought about this vehicle is something you suggested it 3 or 4 times in your conversation. Why should we be using something that clearly has the city of Cleveland is having a horrendous problem with the theft of the Kias and the Hyundais because of this particular product that you're advocating?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilman Tron. And advocating, I think, is a strong word, but I think acknowledging.
You mentioned it 3 or 4 times, so
I think
it must have a purpose.
acknowledging the existence of something and its use is critical, right? So even though it might be supporting some nefarious things by individuals who are stealing Kias and Hyundais, for example, that doesn't mean that 98% of the community isn't good, well-intentioned people who want to share recipes or talk about their favorite restaurant in Cleveland, right? So it's sort of a baby out with the bathwater type of question. Do you forsake the entire platform for a few bad actors, or do you set the example of what the platform could be?
Tell other people who've been seriously injured as a result of this, and then I'll let you make that decision when you look them in the eye. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Miller?
So when I think about two-way interaction with the public, I think about that there's a relatively small number of people who are active and engaged in the community and are likely to participate in government, and then there's a large number of people who are far less engaged. And my question is do you try to identify members of these two groups and deal with them differently?
It's a great question, Councilman Miller. So I think that there would be opportunities for council to think about how they would segment the type of messaging that would go out to people, whether they're politically involved or they're not politically involved, and you're trying to engage them in a first-time conversation, that there's an opportunity to be part of the democratic process through council. I think that the vast majority of our community members don't think that they have a voice or a seat at the table. So I think we need to extend the invitation in such a way that they feel comfortable that they can come sit at this table and have their voice heard.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Simon?
Thank you. Thanks for the information. It seems like you did some work getting ready to present to us some of the potential uses of these platforms, and you did some research?
I did some research. It's also a bit of a hobby when you're in this line of work to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, I could see you understood that the deer sterilization is creating a lot of conversations on social media, Nextdoor and Facebook. And
in my own household.
Okay. I guess we can talk offline specifically about that. But so this is a hobby. You haven't been paid to do any of this research, have you? So I appreciate that. And okay, I think those are my questions about that. But I have a comment about, I'll wait till you're done and comment overall. Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. And I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Mr. King?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. So that was priority number 1, improving council's brand. The second priority listed in the report is basically to conduct a deep dive on how the charter form of government has been working over the past 12 years in office. And the concept behind this, I think, would be, again, to do an RFP to potentially identify someone to do an analysis, identify metrics, and figure out sort of ways we can measure the success of the new form of government. And, when the charter was adopted back in 2009, the preamble listed 6 things that the new form of government that was intended to achieve. And those are a focused, effective, and accountable leadership, job creation and economic growth to ensure necessary health and human services, collaborative leadership with the City of Cleveland, the suburbs, and others in the public and private sectors, an improved focus on equity, long-term and regional and global competitiveness, and taxpayer savings from streamlined services by consolidating separately elected offices. So this particular recommendation, again, urges council to consider hiring an independent party to identify meaningful metrics and evaluate how well the new form of government has been operating, specifically those areas where council has oversight responsibilities, and with a particular focus on the delivery of services to county residents. In conducting this review, the council could issue an RFP to consider partnering with a local academic institution to identify what those metrics might be. And those metrics could include things like wait times at county service desks, call centers, the number of visits to the website, wait times to pay property tax bills, how many people are helped and lifted up through social services, just as an example. So that is I think the sort of concept behind priority number 2. I'll pause there in case anybody has any questions for me or the chair on that, and then move on to the third.
Thank you very much. So this is basically, the government was created 12 years ago. They had a preamble, and check out how it's working. So does it stimulate any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for bringing this up, Mr. Chair. I guess my comments on this would be, to spend money to go out and measure metrics, it doesn't make sense to me personally. I mean, if we're not, is the point to just see how well we're operating and how we can improve? If that's the point, we've had something, are you familiar with county stats? Under the first executive, we had county stats that was set up to just measure how well we were delivering services. So that would be my comment on that. I don't see a real need to go out to start spending money to third parties to determine how well we have an internal auditor. We have the ability to get county stats in-house to improve, and we have innovation here now. I think that's also doing that work. So I would see that we already have the tools available to us to measure these metrics. And, if we're not doing as well as we should be doing, I think the internal way to get that information is in front of us. So those are my comments. And I'm not sure what we would do. We're certainly not going back to an old way to govern, 3 county commissioners. So we have a charter and we have the tools to measure how well the executive branch is delivering.
Thank you. Anybody else?
And I would reflect on Simon's comments on that. It seems to me that our job is the legislative branch. And granted, we are one component of that new form of county government. But the measurements that I believe that are being asked for here are really the fundamental operations of what the executive branch should be doing. If they are not doing their services, then shame on them. But if I am hiring a person to do X, I'm going to set goals and objectives and job descriptions and performance and expectations, and those things should be measurable based on anyone who's sitting there in those executive responsibility chairs out there. And so our responsibility as a oversight is to say, we're paying money for this department and this department and this department. Show us how they're performing. Show us what they're going to do. Make the county executive actually be an executive, actually set a goal, achieve those goals, whether they be short-term or long-term, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, year, 2 or 3 years. And I would have no problem with saying, when we get to the budgeting process that Mr. Miller's going to get to, of actually attaching something to that budget component that says, all right, we're going to spend X amount of millions of dollars. You've asked for this on your budget. Show us what it's going to do. And so, and one of the ones that I know that you and I talked about was on the ERP. We spent $34 million. Have we got our dollars worth of that value of it? If not, go back and show us how we can get our dollars worth of value, because traditionally an MRP of something of that nature would then have the support of how that system, the enterprise resource planning system, is supposed to work to function, and we should be able to hold people accountable to it. And we spent the money, my gosh, and I'm sorry that the third executive coming in did not have anything to do with what the first or second one would have done, but that's okay. We've got the money in the bank now. We spent it. We've created a product. Let's go back and hold this one. And anybody who who would have been hearing us during the ERP, every person that took that microphone for ERP, I asked them, what were your goals? What's your objectives? What were you measured on? And the only one that even came even close to even mentioning the kind of things we're talking about took place in public works. And even they didn't get held to any very high standards. I mean, realistically, a project of that nature, we should go back and hold people accountable. We've got $34 million invested in a product. And so it's, the question should be asked over to this chair over here, it seems to me. Our job is to watch the money. His job is to make the performance take place.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Just on my thought process, this is exactly what we should be doing, stimulating the conversation. And my question was, my objective is to see if after 12 years, is it working better or not? Or is it neutral? And I came up with the RFP for public. I'd love to have our universities do it. But as I have a lot to learn, and hearing from my colleagues, having it in-house, I'm just hoping to get the question answered so we can present to our citizens saying, look, we changed our government, it's better, and we are thankful to be able to be your representative. Change the narrative, because some folks still think our county government is not working as well as it should be. So I appreciate that, and then we can move forward, and I don't care what direction we go. My hope is that we are able to understand where we are right now in comparison.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, one more. On that note, I appreciate it. So if we take a look at the county innovative department's website, they measure regional growth, economic opportunities, individual well-being, cross-sector, and the services. So that's already being done. So I think it would behoove us, if we're interested in measuring, to see, look further into that, but it's already being done pretty specifically to your question.
And that's wonderful.
Thank
And then
you.
compared to where it was before, hopefully it's advanced significantly, and we can share that. And if we can share that through our, the discussion beforehand, it's all part of the whole package of getting to the point where they know who we are and they know we're here to help. So anybody on number 2 still? Okay.
Just to reiterate again what my colleague points out, that's what measurement of our job is not to be the executive or to run that department. That department is being run by whoever sits in that chair, ultimately, because that's where the buck stops. And if when they come forward and ask for money, as they will in the fall, ask them to show how they have spent the money for the last 2 years, 5 years, whatever it happens to be, and that will dictate whether or not they have improved. And they should, if they, like anything, if they have shown phenomenal improvement, they should sing it from the rafttops and maybe use some of the techniques and tools that are being advocated in the first conversation. But it's that chair over there that has the responsibility for those people that report to them. Our job is to watch the money.
And I agree. Yeah. Good. And number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the third priority that the report identifies basically urges council to establish both short-term and long-term legislative priorities at the start of each council session. These priorities could include both substantive policy objectives and or areas where council intends to focus its oversight responsibilities over the coming year or two. Council will always need to adapt to meet needs as they arise. The hope of this priority is that establishing these legislative priorities at the outset will provide greater clarity of purpose and set expectations for the coming year or two. So pretty simple conceptually, but I'll pause there. Those are the 3 priorities, and then once conversation has happened, then we'll go through the others listed in the report.
And thank you. My thought process behind this is legislative priorities. We know what we're focused on, and then we move forward. This council is very focused on all the subsets of the committees. We work very hard, but a thought is identify what we're going to work on. And after talking to my colleague, had the privilege of taking the tour. And it was absolutely eye-opening, kind of really mind-boggling what those machines can do. And your Top Gun story was something I'm going to remember forever. But as we chatted, the three things from my colleague is the jail, Metro, and the use of the ERP, and how we can advance that. And I think we're going to focus on it, and I just want to open up the floor for any comments on number 3. Mr. Miller? Or Councilman Miller?
So, Mr. Chairman and my colleagues, I'm going to make a few comments on issues 2 and 3. First, I'd like to commend Chairman Sweeney for taking a big picture view of council operations and stimulating this discussion on how we can improve. At this early stage of the process, one of the suggestions has already been implemented, in particular that the names of the committee members are now listed on the agenda for the committee meetings, and I think that's helpful both for the committee and for the public. I strongly agree that after 12 years, we would do well to consider those areas in which we have effectively carried out the vision put forward by the framers of the charter, and those areas where we still have a ways to go. There is a tendency for any institution to become set in its ways after a time, and we should actively resist that tendency and revitalize our energies for reforms to increase our effectiveness, oversight, accountability, and transparency. Council should embrace the idea that our role is not just to respond to what the administration sends over and to do good in oversight. It is also to be initiators of new ideas and positive legislation. Ideas such as the 2-year budget, the Veterans Program, the Community Development Supplemental Grant, financial reporting legislation, and the Sustainability Department are all things that originated from Council. To that end, Council should initiate a process to identify a Council legislative agenda and update it every few years. This could be facilitated by public but informal full Council work sessions, making greater use of the tools provided for in our rules and procedures. So, Mr. Chairman, I do support your items 2 and 3. I think they're both well taken. I don't opine on whether it should be an RFP or whether I think a lot of it perhaps could be done internally. So I think that still has to be worked out. But I think the overall concepts are very well taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, thank you. Just a comment. I didn't finish my comment on number 1, that when I was hearing the presentation from Mr. Miller's company and from him, I just wanted to point out that we already have emergency called notify for emergency weather and roads, things like that. We already have that with the executive branch and through our safety department and justice. We also, when it comes to roads, the cities themselves put out the notification on construction. I just think there would be a lot of repetition along those lines. I just wanted to state that. With regard to number 3, we kind of already do this, but no problem making it more formal during the budget process is when we come together and look at the budget and decide as a council what priorities we would like to see advanced. So usually that's done in conjunction with our 2-year budget process, but certainly, if there's a need or a desire to make that more formal, certainly I wouldn't object to that. But we sort of already do that. Kind of.
This is what this whole council meeting or this committee meeting was about, to stimulate dialogue and get thoughts from our colleagues. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Mr. Miller's comments, I agree that all good ideas I didn't mean to indicate that comes from the executive. We are more than capable of creating good ideas. There's no doubt about that, and to originate them. But once originated, we don't execute on those. And so you have to make sure we understand the distinction of when that legislation passes from this body, and the dollars and hopefully are supporting that idea. All we can do is come back and do the oversight to see whether or not they're carrying out those programs and policies and things that were listed. The ERP didn't start with us. We did a lot of mid-course corrections as much as we could, and sadly, they did not listen to us as often as we would have loved to have heard it. But now that the money is invested, and I appreciate your making that on the list, the purpose of that was, my comment to why that is important is because we spent a lot of money on it. That should have been transformational. I have not seen the transformation take place in our form of county government, and we probably will never have a better time than right now, when there's been a reduction of workforce because of the pandemic, to actually utilize that tool to find the significant savings. We're down about, I think, 15% of the workforce. You multiply that on out, that could balance any budget shortcome if we could figure out how to use the ERP in conjunction with the reduction that we already have. And I know that Mr. Gallagher, Councilman Gallagher, has long advocated a buyout out there. Well, theoretically, we already have that in place. The pandemic has actually brought that to fruition out there as far as the reduction. So we would have and I would hope we could use this tool. We only got the Public Works Department to actually even say how they benefited. I mean, you can't walk into a grocery store, you can walk into any place without seeing iPads on people's fingers, and change of technology that we just have not adopted out there. And so that's, when you asked me what I thought, man, we got, anybody who's invested $34 million ought to get a bigger bang for the buck from what we're getting. So that was my reason for putting that as one of the items.
And what I heard from you is the potential's there. We just got to use it.
Oh, my gosh. It should be a force multiplier. There's no doubt about it, used correctly.
Thank you. Any other comments on the first three? Seeing none, please continue.
So finally, at the end of the report, at the bottom of page 2, going into page 3, there are several other ideas listed for improving council operations. These items were compiled after speaking to several members of council. I expect some members will want to address particular items. Some of them have already been brought up, but I'm also happy to read them into the record, which I'll do now, and we can go from there. So first, conduct an overall review of how the new form of government has worked. In what ways have we achieved the things that were intended in making the change, and in what ways can it be better? Number 2, increase committee turnover, including...
We'll just stop on it.
Oh, yeah, sorry, we can do each one.
We already did that one.
Yep.
Any other questions on that? Okay, number 2.
Number 2, increase committee turnover, including chairs, to facilitate the generation of new ideas.
Thank you. Any comments? Okay,
I have a comment.
please.
I think that it's important for the chairs who have institutional knowledge and passion for certain subject matters and a skill set to lead that committee is really important as a consideration. And if someone else is interested in participating in that committee, they would be on the committee and be able to share their ideas. But that's just my view. I think institutional knowledge and passion and ability to get deep into the weeds on a topic is important, which doesn't preclude someone else from getting that information and generating new ideas.
And thank you for that. And the wonderful thing about our council, we have committee meetings, we have committee members, but every council member can join and jump in as deep as they want on the committee meetings. So that's just to take it a step further on your point. We have an opportunity to, if we want to participate and jump in as much as we want, we each one of us who may not have a vote, but we can participate, which is value is what we all strive to do.
And as I understand, Mr. Chairman, these are not your comments, these are just comments that you heard from your
Absolutely.
contemporaries. So
My 3 were in the beginning.
Yeah.
These are I'm not telling you who told what, because that was part of the original.
I did, I acknowledged myself on one of them.
It's on you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So these were anonymous?
No,
So in order to get candid feedback from council members, for the purposes of the report, these items were listed without attribution. I think most of the council members who shared their opinion would be happy to opine on and stand by their comments, but I'll leave that for them to do.
So there was a question whether council members would be reluctant to submit their ideas for a better county council if it was known who their identity was?
No, that was a decision that was made during making this report. Every council member was reached out to,
Yeah.
and the ones that responded gave us their answers or their responses, and we just listed them. And we
I just
didn't-
don't know why someone would be reluctant to
No, it wasn't them being-
identify as generating these ideas. That's all. I didn't know that happened,
They
that this
weren't
is anonymous.
It wasn't reluctant. I didn't even ask the question. And after discussing it with Mike, we thought it'd be prudent just to put them down this way. And that's what we chose to do, so.
Yeah, usually we're pretty upfront with each other and in the open. So I'm just a little taken aback by that, but that's okay. I mean, I'm hoping, like I think our staffer said, that whose ideas they are would speak to them. So we'll see.
Okay. Yes, Mr. President?
I feel the same as Councilwoman Simon in the sense that it doesn't seem as if it's as open. As I read through all of them, all of you have at some point shared with me your personal feelings. So I can go through this list and I could take a pretty good stab at which council person, gave each one of these, but the sense that we can't talk about it openly. Was that where you were going, or is it all right to talk about it?
I think it's all right to talk about it. Each council member has the right to say if they want to do it themselves, and people.
Is there a feeling that we would be exposing someone, or?
Not at all. Not at all.
I claim ownership to number 10.
Yes, sir. Right.
So
Mr.
maybe we should find out, Mr. Chair, who actually submitted these
Councilman Miller has
recommendations.
the floor.
Mr. Chairman and my colleagues, I take ownership of the rotational items. I mentioned previously the tendency for council processes to become set in their ways and inflexible over time. That's why things like leadership rotation, committee rotation, and a stronger role for the vice president are desirable. They would help the county council to be fluid and open to new ideas. None of these things are things that I'm saying should be without exception, but it's things that we should keep in mind and try to do as much as possible to keep the council fluid and able to change as is needed. Thank you.
Thank you. And during this process, I asked our coworker to contact our colleagues. I didn't ask him who gave what, and so I'm not protecting anybody. It's about his job that I asked him to do is to talk to each and every council person and list what they said. So that's what he did.
So there's no problem then in identifying who made these recommendations? There's no prohibition. I heard from Councilman Miller, so which ones are yours, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So I advocated, along with the chairman and others, the one about an overall review of how the new form of government has worked. I offered number 2 on turnover. I offered number 3 on leadership rotation. I offered number 4 on interactive testimony. I offered number 5 on the council website, allowing anyone to see the status of pending legislation. I offered number 6 on expanding and better defining the role of the council president. I offered number 7 on strategic planning. I offered number 8 on the charter amendment on succession process, and number 9 on no, I did not offer number 9. Okay, those are the ones that I offered.
Thank you.
Imagine Councilwoman Meredith Turner offered 13.
I'm happy to speak to, if any of the members of the committee would like to share what they provided. I'm a little reluctant to name individual members who aren't present and attribute to their ideas, but I will say it is my expectation that those who are not here would be more than happy to take ownership of their ideas. I just don't want to do that on their behalf.
Thank you.
Councilman Strawn has already mentioned 10. I would have attributed all those that Councilman Miller has already acknowledged. And, well, I'll leave the chair, but I'll leave it at that.
I'm just curious about 11. Did anybody here submit 11? Number 11?
That would be me.
Okay.
So let's go through them all.
About number 9.
I know, I'm looking at you.
I know what it was not me, was it? I don't think so.
That would be something I would think you would do.
Yeah, I did. I thought I heard.
Oh. Oh.
Councilman
Can
Miller
we
did
scratch that
acknowledge
one?
that he put.
Okay.
Scratch that
Okay. We're
Councilman Miller
scratching.
acknowledged he put forth
9.
and mentioned others, but Miller was the one who put it forth. Who was the one who physically put forth number 9? Did I hear you, Mr. Chair, that maybe did you put it forward, thinking you may have heard it from other colleagues, or did it happen?
Excuse me, Mr. Shrine, is your microphone on?
Perhaps you could have a president and vice president from different parties in consider. I know it ain't gonna.
We were all aware, the chairman shared this with me. I did not actually put anything forward. In many conversations, did you actually put forward number 9?
No, if it was a casual conversation in what, about a 3-hour conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You and I have had that same conversation.
it's not a conversation that I think that is foreign to our former government. It's only become foreign in the last 75 years when we elected separate. We used to elect separate presidents and vice presidents in our government for years and years. The first almost 100+ years.
So just to
But
be
Mr. Strawn said, Councilman said we could scratch number 9, right? Thank you.
It ain't gonna happen. I mean, the reality of, in
Well,
the body of.
we're not, all this is a report from my colleagues through his efforts to be listed of their thoughts. And we're having an open, transparent discussion on this. And it was the question of how number 9 came into existence. Yes. And after having this discussion, I may have prematurely misunderstood, but.
Oh, no, I would have mentioned it in our 3-hour
Yeah.
tours. I might have said, what else? Well, it would be nice if you could have 2 different parties out there at some point along the way, but.
So that's just how it occurred, and I listed it because of that reality.
But the other 2 hours and 59 minutes are not on here either. So it's pretty tough when we talked about a whole lot of other stuff. And so it's, obviously, in my opinion, item 10 was the higher priority, and it did make it. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the transparency discussion with now, I think we know the identity of those who recommended this, which we can be fully transparent and have a spirited discussion without anonymity.
Absolutely. And we have a list of all the 13 that have been identified that responded. And with the council president's comments, are you taking ownership for Councilwoman Turner that she told you to share with us?
No, no, she has not.
Okay, I was just trying to understand what you said there then.
Again, I talk with all of you. So when I hear from you, you share your concerns. So when I read concerns on the paper, council members automatically come to mind. But I shared because I doubted she would have had a concern. I don't think she felt any, she has shared this with others, I believe.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't think she would have had a concern.
Sounds good. Okay. Which number were we on?
I believe we're on number 3?
I think you're on 11,
11, okay.
unless you're repaginating.
We can, yeah. I believe Councilman Miller did go through the ones that he had proposed, so we can, I mean, Mr.
No, is there
Chair,
any discussion on these?
any discussion on?
On
Oh.
3? Is there any discussion on 4? Is there any discussion on 5? And I'm just, yeah, I'd like to bring that, go ahead.
On 5, I would just share with my colleagues that I've been working with Andrea Richardson in the IT department on this for a number of months, and it requires some IT changes, but they believe they can do it, and it would provide some greater transparency. We've had situations in the past where citizens have come to council wanting to talk about legislation but not knowing what the current version of the legislation is because it had been amended. So what I'm hoping to help bring about would enable people to not only see the current version but also to see the previous version so they would know the history, and so this is being worked on.
Thank you very much. Any more comments? Okay, please.
Number 6, expand and better define the role of the council vice president.
Thank you. Any discussions? We have 2 previous vice presidents here. Is there any enlightenments of when you were vice presidents, the roles that were played to understand what the roles were? If that's
I don't think, Mr. Chair, it's a complicated role. We're here to stand in for president when president is not available, to chair meetings and conduct business of the president in his or her stead.
perfect. Thank you. Okay.
I would be more interested in possibly Councilman Miller, as he put it forward, what he saw the expansion looking like. What was his vision?
So, Mr. Chairman, to Council President Jones and my colleagues, I believe that the Council President has a visible role running the meetings of council, and the Council President has a less visible role dealing with things ranging from major problems to fires in wastebaskets that goes on mostly behind the scenes, and I believe that the council president could engage the vice president to take a more active role in helping to deal with some of these things, and also to help the president with communication with the council members, and I think this would just enable the council president to have a wider bandwidth and get more things accomplished in a reasonable length of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Number 7, hold an occasional council-wide caucus meeting for strategic planning and to allow all council members to better understand each other's views and goals. This caucus meeting would be open to the public.
Thank you. Any comments? I'm just a big advocate of caucuses, so we can all get together to be able to talk about whatever is pertinent information. And open to the public is fine, and I don't think we do that enough here. So I'm hopeful that they'll be considered and we can move forward like most other branches of government. Any other comments? Okay, next one.
Number 8, develop and propose a charter amendment to hold special elections as part of the succession process for members of council and the county executive.
So I think there is actually a near consensus among council members that the succession process is not ideal for both the executive and the council, and and in particular the council succession process results in a good number of people succeeding by appointment as opposed to election by all of their constituents. But when you talk about how can it be made better, there's just all kinds of different ideas out there, and there's a lot of technical problems relating to when the vacancy occurs in relation to the election cycle. And so it would be a worthwhile effort to make another attempt on this and try to come up with a solution. This was one of just 4 or 5 items that the last Charter Review Commission dealt with, but they were not able to come up with a solution. So I put it back on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Councilman Tron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The council succession, I think it's not a very pretty process because it seems to be appointment does seem to be work out, but I'm at least acknowledging that was a process that was put in place with some thought. And the county executive succession is one in which it's bothered me from the very beginning, from the very first early stages. Even talking with the very first county executive, he too was not supportive of the idea. Unlike what we have when you look at the state or you look at the federal level, there is a definite second in command that comes on board, joins the person at the time. So it's clear that if something were to happen to the county executive, that person coming into that role would hopefully have been picked to also be an executive in training should, God forbid, something happen to the elected county executive, the governor of the state of Ohio, or the president of the United States. We already have a built-in succession plan built into that office. This office is not one in which they run with a county executive and a vice executive that would be in there. And I would support that in-depth thought and and be one to be willing to work on that concept of going back. And just because we couldn't get it right after the first couple times of looking at it doesn't mean that we could not get it right. And it's a challenging process. But I would like to have seen us elect 2 people, a vice executive and a county executive, so that you have that in place. And a lot of administrative things could be done with that vice county executive to be involved in the operation of good government. The cost, when you look at it, would be minimal to, I believe, to the county. And the succession plan would be, you've got somebody in there who's been in training, working forward. God forbid somebody gets hit by a car as a county executive, and you immediately need to replace that person. For example, if we just had a newly elected council president with very little experience in that respect, that means that we've got very little training going on. So I would support that concept of having an in-depth discussion on that.
Chairman.
Mr. Miller or Councilman Miller?
I would just add that the Inspector General Charter Amendment was an example of one that went through a lot of discussion and iterations over an extended length of time, but it eventually got done, and the amendment seems to be working very well. And yes, this one is probably harder, but it's not as hard as campaign finance.
Anybody else? Just my 2 cents on this is the charter was created. This is what's in it. And it's one of 3 ways to have a replacement in my eyes from my elected spots that I was at. This is by central committee, by your parties. The other was appointment through members of council. And the third one is appointment through members of the caucus. All have their flaws. And what I think Councilman Miller is just saying is, let's look at it again and see if we can improve it. So I went through the appointment process through the central committee people, and some people were very happy with it. Other people weren't, just like the appointment for local municipalities. So I think an in-depth look is, every once in a while, is a good thing.
Mr. Chairman, my comment was not on the council succession. Mine was limited only to the county executive.
Thank you. And my comments are specifically to the process for appointments of the vacancies in the county. Okay, thank you.
Skipping maybe to number 10 without
No,
objection.
you can read number 9.
We can read number 9?
Read
All right,
number
number
9.
9.
Sure, of course.
Establish a norm
I
that
can't write it. I can't defend it.
establish a norm that the council president and vice president be from different political parties.
And the only reference to that is this body has worked so well for the first 12 years to eliminate 3, 4, 5, depending on whatever was sitting up here from consideration, means you've left potential leaders that could have been making a contribution, but for a reason other than potentially being from a different party.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we feel the same way about the State House.
I would agree. No, I have no doubt about it. It is, that is a very viable, and it happens at every body of government. I understand that. But we've always looked upon ourselves as being different than both the federal and the state level here.
Thank you.
Number 10, make Metro Health, the jail, and the Enterprise Resource Planning Project as priorities for council oversight.
Then it's already been stated.
I just thought that one's on the front page, one's on page 2, and one is one that should be always, how can we improve?
Okay, number 11.
Number 11, responsive communication in a timely manner among all 11 council members will help improve our deliberation and improve the legislative process.
Thank you, and that's mine, and I think it speaks for itself. We communicate with each other regularly, and I need to improve on it myself, and that's the reason I put it down, and I firmly believe that. Any questions? Okay.
Number 12, print the names of members on each committee agenda for easy reference and transparency. And I think, as was stated earlier, we've begun doing that.
Our first success story from my report, and thank you, Councilman Miller, for bringing it up. And lastly, you can read it in, but I think we talked about it in number 1.
Sure. Number 13, improve communication with the public. Expand council's social media presence either by hiring a dedicated communications staff person or creating a student internship or fellowship.
We're good on that?
Well, again, I said that's a conversation I've had with Meredith. Whether she was the one that put this on the list, or I couldn't speak to that.
Well, I'm good with that. It's kind of helps validate. I'm validating hers, or she's validating mine in regards to the need for it, because it's kind of similar to number 1. Councilwoman Simon?
Actually, I've been an advocate since almost day one that we should have a communications person for council.
Yeah, I hope this
I think,
conversation.
and so in the past, we've been able to, we had a contractor for that, but I think we should have somebody on staff all the time, whether it's by contract or an employee. The executive branch has a communications department with many people in that. We don't have that. Our staff does its best, but considering what happened, especially with Cleveland.com's constant barrage of attacks unjustifiably, in my opinion, and at times blatantly false, it was really important that we had the ability to shoot back immediately. So I would like to see some communications person on staff with us.
Jack?
I thought we did for a short period of time. We had a short window of time.
We did.
Where we had, as I recall,
Sharkey,
yes. Marianne Sharkey was our point person on a number of those issues.
yeah, we continuously should,
Yeah.
I think we need that now.
And I'm glad we brought it up and this stimulated dialogue again. And Councilman Kelly, I love it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been sitting and listening, and as it's been brought up once today already, I'm here for a month. And going through all of these things, number 10 obviously should be a priority with Mr. Sean's statement on that. I'm in agreement on number 13 that we need better probably communication. The social media expansion, I think, would be an excellent idea. And when it comes to working on the secession process for council and county executive, especially for the county executive part, I'd love to get my hands in on that one too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike, I can't thank, or excuse me, Mr. King, Esquire, I can't thank you enough for putting this report together, working with me and communicating. And I know you put a lot of work into this, and I think the product is wonderful, and I think we may have an impact moving forward. So is there any miscellaneous?
I'll make one comment on item 10. The ERP and the jail are clearly our direct oversight responsibilities. With Metro Health, the county executive recommends appointments and we confirm or reject. Okay, so we certainly want to do our appropriate level of oversight, but again, with the recognition that there is a board that is in place by this body to do their job. So there should be the appropriate level of respect for the existing board that we put in place when we do the necessary oversight for things, if at the very least, the fact that we do give them an annual subsidy. So we certainly want to do our due diligence. We have and will continue. But it should be with the recognition that there is a board in place to provide oversight for the hospital. Be put in
Mr.
place.
Schwan?
I'm sure this, number 10 is written out for brevity. There was more to that than just saying Metro Health. It was not we're not going to go in and operate the hospital. It was, we are providing funds, and as we all know, there's a question as to how those funds are being utilized. The only concept that was discussed was our responsibility for oversight of the money, not of the operation. So clearly when you would have read, when we all read the newspaper at the time this was written back in November or December, it was that millions of dollars of money were incorrectly, at least potentially, being alleged to have been used. We provide $32 million. We have an oversight responsibility on the money, not the operation. So I think that was my purpose for identifying. We had two people come in here and tell us that, but for the fact that there was alleged over $2 million being used incorrectly, there would have been a request for another $8 million from that same microphone. And so to this body, that request would have come to us, not to the county executive, but to us first. And so that's my purpose for putting that down, was strictly to follow, as they said in a one that my party was not very proud of, follow the money from the Watergate, follow the money also in this particular case was all I was looking to do.
Councilwoman Simon?
Thank you, Councilman.
And follow the money in HB6 too, so that'd be interesting. HB6.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am not, I
know you
I'm
just
not
said
an
my
advocate of anything improper, so.
Okay. I just want to mention this, our subsidy to Metro Health has always been restricted, and always, I thought we had put in there that they have to report on how they use that. I'm just not sure. We've been, we've been doing that. Early on, we put that in there so we could have oversight over our subsidy.
That's all I was looking for was follow the money. Yep. Not how you run the hospital.
Sorry, I was snarky about HB 6.
That's
I
a
couldn't
lot of
help
people.
it.
And Mr. Schron and I, we spent at least 20 minutes on Metro in regards to the dollar amount. And just in regards to Metro and any other intergovernmental relations, I think it falls under my chairmanship. So if we need to get knee-deep into this, I'll be more than happy to conduct business in that manner. Any other comments or questions?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
I just wanted to say that I thought that the council president's comment about Metro is very well taken, that our role with the jail and the ERP, it's very direct. It's what we have. It's part of our own governmental services. Where with Metro, it's an intergovernmental relationship, and because we have a $40 million subsidy, yes, we definitely have a role to play, but it's to be done in conjunction with Metro, and not something where we would be the lead responsible party.
And thank you. This is just the word priorities, and this council, through our council president, will decide and drive which ones are. And let me just take the hit that Jack and I were talking about things, and I interpreted that as a priority for the component of the finances that we approve. So it's not in totality. I think it's what the council president said, but with the clarification from Councilman Schron, we're all explicitly understanding it's important, but only that portion of it.
Right, and just to reiterate, Mr. Chairman, if it's a criminal matter, ain't in our ballpark, that belongs to the county prosecutor. If there is an audit of the entire books, which has now been, I assume being looked at by the state auditor, that's in his purview. If it's the $30+ million times 10, that amounts to over $300 million that we have provided in a 10-year period of time. I believe we have an obligation to actually look and make sure that those funds are being used, because money is fungible, as we know. Once it hits a ledger sheet, or even look in your own wallet, is the dollar you have in your pocket going to go for food, rent, or some other thing? And it's almost impossible, because once it gets commingled, it gets fungible.
Any other for the good of the committee?
And I'll share with you, obviously, we will hear from Dr. Erica Steed in the coming months, as she will speak to us where Metro is as she has begun to settle in from her just taking office in January. So we will hear from her again at I would say in February.
And I'm excited that she's coming on the 7th just to introduce herself. I'm looking forward to seeing her at 11 o'clock. So
on Metro, I just want to be clear that I agree that we definitely have a role to play. It's one that we play with other partners also involved, and that was my only point why I support what the council president had to say about this.
And I'm just really happy we had this committee and the dialogue we had, and having Councilwoman Conwell and Councilman Kelly come. That just makes me happy. And I think we did some good stuff. And I look forward to continuing this dialogue. This committee is adjourned.